Hello, and welcome back. Tonight we listen to the ground shake. Before the infantry moved, before the peace returned, the earth trembled under the weight of the steel giants. These were the tanks, massive, clanking monuments of iron that turned the tide of empires. They were moving fortresses, homes for the brave, and coffins for the fallen. We will explore the machines that redefined the battlefield and the mechanical souls that carried the weight of history. Before we feel the thunder of the engines, if you find fascination in the machines of the past, please like this video and subscribe. Breathe in the smell of oil and iron. Let us face the giants. Fact 1. The Tiger's Shadow. Tiger 1. No tank in history carried as much psychological terror as the German Tiger 1. When its 88mm gun turned toward an Allied unit, it wasn't just a battle, it was a crisis. Its armor was so thick that most Allied shells simply bounced off like pebbles. Allied tank crews were given special instructions. Tiger fever was real, the sheer panic of seeing this mechanical monster on the horizon. But the Tiger was a complex beast, difficult to build and maintain. It was a masterpiece of intimidation, proving that a single powerful shadow could hold back an entire army, even if only for a moment. Fact 2. The Liberator's Sword, T-34. While others focused on elegance, the Soviet T-34 was built for the brutal reality of the Russian winter. Its sloped armor was revolutionary, causing enemy shells to slide away harmlessly. It was simple, rugged, and produced in such vast numbers that it became a steel ocean flooding across the east. The T-34 wasn't just a machine, it was the symbol of Soviet resilience. It could drive through deep mud and survive hits that would destroy any other tank. It proved that in a total war, the winner isn't the one with the most complex machine, but the one whose machine refuses to stop.
Fact 3. The Workhorse of Freedom, M4 Sherman. The American Sherman was the unsung hero of the Western Front. It wasn't the biggest or the most powerful, but it was reliable, easy to repair, and could be shipped across oceans by the thousands. Its greatest strength was its versatility. It could be fitted with flamethrowers, mine-clearing rollers, or even rockets. For the American GIs, the Sherman was a constant companion, a mobile shield that provided comfort in the chaos. It was the industrial heart of the Allies, a machine built in the factories of Detroit that carried the hope of a continent on its tracks. Fact 4. The Black Prince's Guardian, Churchill Tank. The British Churchill tank was a slow-moving fortress built to climb over the steepest obstacles and withstand the heaviest fire. It reflected the British philosophy of the infantry tank, a slow, steady protector that walked alongside the soldiers. It had incredibly thick armor, making it almost impossible to knock out from the front. Whether climbing the steep hills of Tunisia or surviving the beaches of Dieppe, the Churchill was a symbol of stubborn endurance. It was a tank that refused to move fast, but also refused to be stopped, embodying the keep calm and carry on spirit of its nation. Fact 5. The Phantom of the Desert, Panzer IV. The Panzer IV was the only German tank to stay in production throughout the entire war. While the Tiger and Panther got the glory, the Panzer IV did the work. In the vast burning sands of North Africa, it was the spearhead of the Afrika Korps. It was a balanced, reliable machine that evolved as the war grew more violent. Its silhouette, often seen emerging from a dust storm in the desert, became a nightmare for those who faced it. It was the backbone of the Blitzkrieg, the mechanical fist that struck with speed and precision before the world knew what was happening. Fact 6. The Panther's Leap, Panzer V, Panther. Considered by many to be the best all-around tank of the war, the Panther was a perfect balance of speed, armor, and firepower. It was Germany's answer to the T-34, featuring long-range lethality and sophisticated optics. However, its early days were plagued by mechanical failures. Some even caught fire before reaching the battlefield. But when it worked, it was a predator without equal. Its long 75mm gun could pick off targets from miles away. The Panther was a beautiful, deadly paradox, a machine of peak performance that was too late and too few to save an empire. Fact 7. The King of the Battlefield, King Tiger. The Tiger II, or King Tiger, was the final evolution of German heavy tank design. It was a 70-ton monster with armor so thick that almost nothing in the Allied arsenal could penetrate its front. It was the ultimate defensive weapon, a steel mountain that could hold a bridge or a road against an entire division. But its weight was also its weakness. It was too heavy for many bridges and consumed fuel at a terrifying rate. The King Tiger was a dying empire's last heavy breath, a machine of immense power that was eventually crushed by its own weight and the lack of resources. Fact 8. The Tiny Terror. The Italian L-3035 was a tankette, a tiny two-man vehicle that looked like a toy compared to the Tiger. It had no turret and only carried machine guns. In the deserts of Africa or the mountains of Greece, these small vehicles were often the only armor available. They were vulnerable and lightly armored, but they showed the bravery of the crews who drove them into battle knowing they had little protection. The L-3035 is a reminder that in war, bravery isn't always found in the biggest machines, but in the men who face the giants in small ones. Fact 9. The Firefly's Sting. The British took the American Sherman and gave it a Sting, the 17-pounder anti-tank gun. This created the Sherman Firefly, the only Allied tank during the Normandy invasion that could reliably knock out a Tiger or a Panther from a distance. Because it was so dangerous, German crews were ordered to target the Fireflies first. To hide, the crews would paint the front of the long gun barrel with white paint to make it look shorter, like a regular Sherman. It was a clever, deadly modification that proved that a simple upgrade could change the balance of power in a single shot. Fact 10. The Stealthy Scout, M24 Chaffee. Near the end of the war, the Americans introduced the M24 Chaffee, a light tank built for speed and reconnaissance. Unlike the heavy brawlers, the Chaffee was the eyes of the army. It was fast, quiet, and carried a surprisingly powerful gun for its size. It could zip through forests and over bridges that would collapse under a Sherman. It represented a shift toward modern mobile warfare, where being seen first was just as dangerous as being hit. The Chaffee was the silent scout, the ghost in the machine that found the enemy before the hammer fell. Fact 11. The Hunter in the Shadows, Jagd Panther. While tanks were built for battle, tank destroyers were built for the ambush. The Jagd Panther was perhaps the most beautiful and lethal design of its kind. It had no rotating turret. Instead, its massive 88mm gun was fixed directly into its sloped, thick frontal armor. It was a predator designed to wait silently in a forest or behind a ruined wall. Low to the ground and incredibly well protected from the front, it could destroy any Allied tank long before it was even spotted. The Jagd Panther represents the philosophy of the hidden sting, a machine that turned the landscape itself into a weapon of surprise and sudden mechanical death. Fact 12. The Speed of the Desert, Cromwell Tank. The British Cromwell was the racer of the battlefield. Powered by a modified version of the famous Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same engine used in Spitfire fighter planes, it was one of the fastest tanks of the entire war. During the push through France and Germany, Cromwells would often outrun their own supply lines. Its speed allowed it to flank heavier German tanks, attacking their weaker sides before they could even turn their turrets. It was a machine of maneuver and daring, proving that in the chaos of war, the ability to strike and disappear was sometimes more valuable than the thickest armor or the biggest gun. Fact 13. The impossible monster. Panzer VIII Maus. In the final desperate years of the war, German engineers created the Maus, the heaviest tank ever built. Weighing a staggering 188 tons, it was more of a moving fortress than a vehicle. It was so heavy that no bridge in Europe could support it. It was designed to drive along the bottom of rivers using a snorkel for air. Only 2 prototypes were ever made, and they never saw true combat. The Maus was a symbol of a regime that had lost touch with reality, choosing to build a single impossible monster instead of the practical machines needed to survive. It remains a ghost of engineering, a giant that was too big for the world it tried to conquer. Fact 14. The Soviet Goliath, IS-2 Joseph Stalin. The IS-2 was the Soviet Union's answer to the German Tiger. Named after the Soviet leader, it carried a massive 122mm gun that could shatter a Tiger tank into pieces with a single hit. It was a tank designed for the breakthrough, to smash through the strongest enemy defenses and lead the way to Berlin. Its heavy armor was cast in smooth, rounded shapes to deflect shells, and its presence on the battlefield was a signal that the tide had turned. The IS-2 was the hammer of the East, a machine of raw, unrefined power that crushed everything in its path during the final march toward victory.
Fact 15. The amphibious miracle. Duplex drive Shermans. On the morning of D-Day, a strange sight emerged from the waves of the English Channel. These were DD Shermans, or Donald Duck tanks, fitted with large, waterproof canvas screens that allowed them to float. Driven by propellers, they swam toward the beaches alongside the infantry. While many sank in the rough seas, those that reached the shore provided the vital fire support needed to break the Atlantic Wall. They were a triumph of imagination over nature, proving that even a 30-ton steel tank could be taught to swim if the mission of liberation demanded it. They remain a symbol of Allied ingenuity and the risks taken to storm the fortress of Europe. Fact 16. The Desert Fox's Shield, Matilda II. In the early days of the Desert War, the British Matilda II was known as the Queen of the Desert. Its armor was so thick that the Italian and German anti-tank guns of the time could not penetrate it. It moved at the speed of a walking man, but it was nearly invincible. At the Battle of Arras, a small group of Matildas caused such panic in the German ranks that it almost halted their entire invasion. However, as the war progressed and guns got bigger, the Queen lost her crown. She remains a reminder of a time when thickness of skin was the ultimate defense, a slow but steady guardian of the African sands. Fact 17. The Japanese Guardian, Type 97 Chi-Ha. In the dense jungles and rugged islands of the Pacific, the Japanese Type 97 Chi-Ha played a different kind of role. It was small and lightly armored compared to European tanks, but it was designed to be transported across oceans and operate in places where roads did not exist. For the Japanese soldiers, the Chi-Ha was a symbol of modern strength in a war often fought with bayonets and grit. While it struggled against the heavier American Shermans, it was a vital part of the early Japanese victories. It shows that the perfect tank is often the one that can actually reach the battlefield, no matter how remote. Fact 18. The Flaming Tongue, Churchill Crocodile. Of all the specialized tanks, none was more feared than the Churchill Crocodile. It was a standard Churchill tank equipped with a flamethrower that could shoot a stream of fire over 100 yards. It towed a large trailer filled with fuel behind it.
The mere sight of a crocodile approaching a bunker was often enough to make an entire garrison surrender. It was a terrifying weapon of psychological warfare, a machine that brought the heat of a volcano to the front lines. The crocodile reminds us of the brutal methods used to clear the path to peace and the terrible power of fire in the hands of iron. Fact 19. The Forgotten Wall, KV-1. During the first months of the invasion of Russia, the KV-1 was a nightmare for German soldiers. It was a heavy tank in every sense of the word. In one famous incident, a single KV-1 blocked an entire German division for 2 days, soaking up hundreds of hits without stopping. German soldiers called it the ghost tank because their shells simply could not kill it. It was slow and mechanically unreliable, but its sheer toughness bought the Soviet Union the precious time it needed to reorganize. The KV-1 was the first wall the Blitzkrieg hit, proving that even the fastest lightning can be stopped by a mountain of steel. Fact 20. The evolution of the species, Centurion. As the war drew to a close, the British introduced the Centurion. It arrived just weeks too late to see combat in World War II, but it became the blueprint for the main battle tank of the future. It combined the armor of a heavy tank, the speed of a medium tank, and a gun that could kill anything. The Centurion was the end of the old categories. No longer were there light or heavy tanks, but a single, perfect predator. It represents the final lesson learned from 6 years of blood and iron, that balance is the ultimate weapon. It stands as the bridge between the chaotic battles of the past and the high-tech warfare of the future. Conclusion. The rusting relics. The engines have cooled. The tracks have stopped turning. The fields of fire are now fields of wheat. As you drift into sleep, feel the ground grow still. The thunder of the iron giants is now only a memory, a story told by the wind through rusted armor. May we find the strength to build a world that no longer needs monsters of steel. Sleep well, for the giants are at rest.